Hello, internet friends. My name is Bay, and welcome to the Battle for Azeroth first pass look at the Protection Warrior. Oh, wait. I'm on my Prot Paladin. Whatever could that... Just hold on. During testing today on the Protection Warrior, something ridiculous and complicated and wacky wild, just unbelievably convoluted and mathy came up today that took almost 2 hours to talk about with chat, figure out, reverse engineer, and try to sort out what this was. And I can show this on the Prot Paladin first, and then I have a little bit of a mathy graph to pop up on screen, and then we can go over to the Prot Warrior and go over everything. But real quick, I had to go over something about the change to block. So, as you can see right here on the tooltip, and we didn't think anything of it when we were testing Prot Paladin last week or week before or whatever, it's a 35% reduction in damage when you block, which is totally fine. That's how it is on live right now, so we didn't think there was anything changed. However, we didn't notice that when you add armor, why does our blocked damage go down? There is new math that there is sort of a non-linear relationship with the amount of armor you have on your character and how much that affects the damage that you block, right? Now, again, I'm just showing you this on a Prot Paladin just so you can see as my armor goes up, because that's how Shield of the Righteous works, my blocked damage from a blocked attack goes down. We'll swap to the Prot Warrior now, because it's definitely not our beautiful straight-backed brother. Look at that straight-backed boy. Look at him. Anyway, I have a image that I will bring up on screen right now. Let me grab a quick... There we go. So, in this black box, there is some math. You ready? Just hold on. Okay. Earlier on stream today, let me make this a little bigger for you. We were looking at the relationship between armor and block, the value at which you block. So as you see in the left column at the top there, the higher your armor, and these are ballparked-ish numbers based on looking at armor on our Protection Warrior. There's our straight back brother, he's right there. And the Protection Paladin. They could be somewhat different, but I'll put this over my head now, and I'll open my character panel. I have 43%, so 44% armor, and my block is 34. And there is a back and forth on this, on how this works and why this is a thing, but the biggest overall point we were trying to get to is that A, if you're new to the channel and you would like to follow all the testing we do, you could subscribe right here on YouTube for the discussion videos that go over all this nitty-gritty, or the VODs, the 3 hours, the 4 hours, the 2.5 hours of all the live testing, all the minutia. Those are uploaded here on YouTube, or you can watch it happen live on my Twitch channel, linked down below. Or you can join the conversation in the YouTube comments down here on this video, or hit me up on Twitter if I've missed anything or messed anything up ridiculously, or I'm totally off base on things, right? Let me know. But we were showing that the more armor you have, the less you block. However, armor is a super, super, super important part of how all the tanks are going to work in Battle for Azeroth. All of them. Blizzard is trying to shift every single tank to this armor focus. And then that's the cake, right? Imagine the cake is just armor. And then everything else is sprinkled on top. It's the icing. It's the sprinkles. Those are the extra bits, like how you deal with magic damage, or are you proactive or are you reactive with how you deal with your damage intake or damage outgoing, right? Whichever way you can do it, right? Are you soul cleave or are you shield block? That's how the tanks will be. But behind all of that is a focus on armor. Now, on this above my head, you'll see I did 2 different math, just napkin math tests of a 10,000 physical attack landing, and how damage works in World of Warcraft from all that we could figure out and remember and look up forums or whatever is that an attack is going to hit you. Do you block, dodge, or parry? right? Usually the dodges or the parries will be the first step because they are completely avoiding damage. If you didn't dodge or parry, did you block? In the case of these sword and shield, right? If you're using an actual Prot warrior or Prot paladin. And then if you blocked, in the case of the protection warrior here, do you critically block? Because that is their mastery. This above my head is just armor and block. No critical blocks, no versatility, nothing else. So the 10k hit is blocked, takes off 3,400 damage, because 34% block. Then it hits your armor, which takes off 2,904, and then the rest hits your face, the 3,696. Now, the additional one, that's the second one down below, that's physical damage with higher armor, and then as your armor gets higher, your block goes down. So the block, the 10k hits your block, 2,600 damage taken off, then that, the amount remaining hits your armor, taking off the additional 4,810, and only 2,590 hits you in the face. So this alone shows still, on napkin math, that armor is king. But because of the new armor scaling, as you gain more armor, it diminishes the amount that you block, but you still take less damage because you have higher armor. But I needed to really get that whole thing out. I'm not going to dwell too much on the way this tooltip is wrong, and the verbiage in the tooltip about critical block is misleading, and it doesn't tell the player what is happening. Because the blocking twice the amount on a critical block, that is double the amount you're supposed to block, right? Which should be 34%. But that should be 68%. But it's not actually the case. It actually blocks the 52.3% that your mastery says is the chance to critically block. Because our block chance is 31 or 30.66, our critical block chance is the 52.3. Because you can go back to the base toolkit in a database and you see that it's your mastery is 3 times that of your additional base block chance, and then the attack power coefficient there is just double the base amount, right? It goes 4%, 12%, and 8% if you look at the base tooltip on the database there. So this is a big, sudden realization of how block and armor works, and I had to get that out there because it affects both Prot Paladin and Prot Warrior only, because they are block tanks. But that is how all of that works out. And let me know in the comments down below, or let me know on Twitter, or hit me up in Discord, or wherever you want to talk to me about if I've messed up the math, or if there's more to this whole conundrum that is happening in Battle for Azeroth. Outside of that, there are some passive updates and things here we can go through for the Protection Warrior. I'm going to move over my notes here. So the block change is ridiculous. And there are some other shorthand that I need to go over. So we have Thunderclap. Thunderclap actually has its slow reduced to 20%, down from 50% as live. Shield Slam only generates 15 rage, down from 20. Shield Block costs 35 rage, down from 15, or up from 15, sorry. It costs 15 on live right now. It's way up. 20 more expensive right now in BFA. And the block window is now only 4 seconds, down from 6. Demoralizing Shouts base cooldown is now 1 minute, 60 seconds, which is reduced from 1.5 minutes or 90 seconds. That's a baseline buff to Demoralizing Shout overall. Rallying Cry has returned to the Protection Warrior, aka, of course, Commanding Shout as you know it now, but it's back to the original naming of the spell. So now all 3 warriors have Rallying Cry. All warriors also have Battle Shout, which is your 10% attack power bonus. However, it's not an aura. You have to continuously spam it. So when someone dies in your group, be ready to waste the global on rebuffing them, or the DPS warrior has to, but mostly the tank, because it's better for them to do it than, you know, okay. The talent tier, your 15s, all your stuns have been changed slightly. Stormbolt is unchanged. Warbringer now does not AoE around the target anymore. It still does the stun on the target, but it no longer AoEs when you get to the target. And Shockwave has the cooldown reduced to 30 seconds base, no cooldown reduction, and a 2-second stun. Now, before you freak out, all CC, slows, mobility, changing stuff, stuns, roots, etc. have all been changed, buffed in certain areas and nerfed in others. That is to change the whole plateau of where your CC is. Because right now, everyone either has a stun or no one has a stun, right? It's a sheer cliff. And taking a stun or taking a really big slow is incredibly, like, everyone has to do it. For Mythic Plus, for example, or for big parts of raids. So they're now changing it to sort of teeter-totter that back down so that when a spec has a certain amount of CC in an area, then it's important. But now, because they're all sort of in the same, now you have an AoE stun, or the ranged single target long form stun, or this charge synergy stun that you can utilize with just Warbringer in general. Excuse me. So that is a big change. Additionally, Devastator no longer generates rage on the auto attacks. And because the legendary gloves are gone, that obviously sort of weakens Devastator overall. So that has been changed. Never Surrender and Indomitable have both changed. We'll look at those in a little bit when we go downstairs. And rage generation from you doing damage or taking damage has also been changed. And by I mean changed, I mean normalized in a way. Because there is, you roughly gain 2 with a possible decimal place behind it rage per auto attack, per white swing. So 2, which you'll see in a moment when I get down to smack the target dummies. And you gain 3-ish per damage taken hit, regardless of how many things are hitting you, with what seems to be at least a half second, if not a second, internal cooldown. So I'm just gonna walk over here and start smacking this target dummy. You'll see my rage go up at 2 at a time. And I don't have Devastator on right now, so you're not seeing any extra attacks. But you do 2 rage a hit, and regardless of damage taken, as I said before, you gain 3-ish rage per hit. I'm gonna just walk over here and Thunderclap. I'll gain 5 rage, and then you can watch the rage go up. I'm just gonna pummel him, actually. I auto-attacked once, but 8, 11, 14, 17, 20, 23, 26, 29, etc. Right? So there is no spiky rage. Your auto attacks give you rage. Damage taken with a internal cooldown gives you rage. And then, of course, your shield slams and your thunderclaps will generate rage as well for the Prot warrior itself. We're going to walk out of combat here real quick so it doesn't... Come on. Yeah, there he goes. So that is how rage gets generated. And then the same hooks you have on live right now, either with Devastator's resetting of Shield Slam if you choose it, or just that your Devastate, Thunderclap, and Revenge have a chance to reset Shield Slam. So that's still the way you would prioritize Shield Slam for rage generation overall. And there was a concern on stream about, well, again, talents aside, about how much rage does the Prot warrior have and how does the rage feel. And I'll just do a quick, this is a 112 elite dungeon dummy. So it's basically a dungeon boss. And we'll just see how long, I'll use like every cooldown to slowly rotate through to live as long as I can. And you'll watch how the rage bounces around, because people were saying that like, well, Prot warrior has nothing to spend rage on, or they have too much rage. And I don't agree. I feel that rage overall feels pretty okay. We don't have Devastator right now, so we're not gonna worry about that. Even though I don't like really hitting Devastate itself, but we'll do it anyway. Didn't really get any revenge procs. Okay, there we go. But I was a little aggressive on spending rage there, and obviously I'm not getting healed at all. But that is pretty okay, I feel, because there are some rage gameplay windows revolving around the new Ignore Pain that I'll have to talk about and show you. So baseline, everything else you saw. Deep Wounds is still here. Arms Warrior Deep Wounds is different than the Deep Wounds on the Protection Warrior, Devastate and Revenge put your deep wounds up. So Revenge is by default your additional rage spender, unless you dodge or parry, and then when your Revenge procs, it's a free one. It doesn't actually cost any rage. So keep that in mind though, because things that require you to spend rage do not work on free Revenge procs, right? We looked at that too with the Deadly Calm window on Arms Warrior and that nonsensical stuff that was there. But Deep Wounds does scale with haste. So there are some haste possibilities that are still very prevalent, even more so I would say than in Legion, because the bleeds with haste, but Deep Wounds again for arms has no haste synergy at all, but Deep Wounds for protection, which you can see here, does have the 2.6, and if I add more haste to my build in some way, it will go down to 2.2, 2.4, etc. So it does tick faster with haste. We only have 17% baseline here in this starter gear, but it does tick faster with haste. So the haste mastery possibility of Prot is still very much there for the Prot Warrior. Depends on what other stats you're going to care for, but that's the synergy that's still there. Victor Rush is the same. Again, whenever the Thunderclap has the slow, the snare reduction in overall effectiveness. Taunt is still here. Spell Reflection is still available for the Prot Warrior, which is interesting. It was brought up today that it still has one of the only remaining magic damage mitigation tools, but that is because that's just how Prot Warrior exists, because a Bear Druid lost Mark of Ursol, but they still have Frenzied Regen. So they take magic damage, and then they'll use that to empower their self-heal. Blood Death Knight, same sort of a deal. They will react to that damage with Death Strikes. A Prot Warrior, and we'll go over Ignore Pain in a moment, can't react to it at all. You have to preemptively set yourself up with Spell Reflect to reduce incoming magic damage and or, Spell Reflect an actual spell, a single targeted spell that can be, or use it to mitigate dot damage, etc. On top of your only other way to mitigate spell damage is Demoralizing Shout, which is still the 20% reduction in damage, which is a cooldown. It was reduced in cooldown, so that's helpful as well in that regard. And then, of course, just Shield Wall itself. Shield Block, as I went over, still has the damage amp. I have Heavy Repercussions talented right now, so don't worry about the 30% additional. So it's 30% in damage in the Shield Block window. But because the Shield Block window is shorter now, Heavy Repercussions gets buffed slightly by this. So if you enjoyed that play style, then it very well might come into play on more heavily physical damage oriented encounters, because Shield Slamming in the Shield Block window does give you 60% more damage, and of course extends the duration of block now, which is going to be more helpful because it was cut down a little bit. Revenge still does the wide arc in front of you damage. It's Recklessness now for Battle Cry, where it's, let's say Battle Cry, but on live it's called Battle Cry, but it's Recklessness, okay? It's Recklessness. Again, Rallying Cry is here. Pummel's the same. Last Stand is still the exact same. So is Intercept. Berserker's Rage remains unchanged. Again, Devastate is there. Heroic Leap, Heroic Throw. The other big major change to go over, and I will tie this into the other talents as well, is going to be Ignore Pain. This is kind of hard to show off in this sort of a short discussion video. And if you want a bunch of Ignore Pain, we probably went over this for at least 25 to 30 minutes on the discussion video, so you can check out the VOD when that comes out, or go check it out on VOD form on Twitch. Ignore Pain's a 12-second cooldown, where you fight through the pain, and for the next 4 seconds, it syncs up with Shield Block. Shield Block is 4, Ignore Pain is 4. It causes 60% of the damage taken to reduce your rage instead of your health. This is hard to look at on dummies and just questing mobs because the damage doesn't really work. I even used some Ignore Pains a moment ago and you didn't really notice it because it doesn't, the target dummy either doesn't do enough damage or chunks you and it's not lined up enough with the 4-second window, so you really can't see. But I will just throw up an Ignore Pain here and you'll sort of see what happens. It doesn't really move a whole lot. You see my rage going down and I'm taking less damage, but it's such a small window of time that it's hard to see. The way that Ignore Pain is going to work, back on the magic damage discussion, is the example I used on stream today, and I'll use it again here. You're tanking a giant dragon, right? Nefarian, Onyxia style dragon bosses, right? They've got auto attacks. They've got their little cleave special attack that usually pairs up with an auto attack that does a whole lot of damage. But that's sort of random, right? You can't really tell when that's going to happen. But they have a breath attack. Has a cast time. You can see it happening. So you build up your rage in the moments before, and your DBM or Bigwig's timer's letting you know when the breath's going to happen. And then you ignore pain as the breath is about to go out. So 60% of that breath, which is going to chunk you, goes into your rage bar. Now, the rage minigame here is important because you only have 10 rage because you've been recklessly spending your rage on revenges. Only 10 rage worth of extra HP matters. And then all of it goes to your face. Or you see the breath happening and you ignore pain at the proper time with 60 to 80 to 100 rage. And maybe even you demo shout it as well to reduce the overall damage window to make your ignore pain more effective. Then so much more of that damage, if not an entire block of it, will be eaten up in the 60% damage, which reduces your rage instead. Versus now, you just hit ignore pain 2 or 3 times before anything happens and you have a bubble on you. So arguably easier to use ignore pain now, even though it is just APM, just guttural spam, honestly. But now there is this mini game of using your rage properly on these windows of boss damage that is going to be incredibly powerful from them to you. So it's your 4th scythe on Mythic Argus, right? So it's your demoralizing shout into ignore pain and shield block window. And timing that properly. Having the rage to hit the new shield block because it's expensive now. Because of the armor influence, right? Because it will reduce so much more overall damage because of how that works now. On top of ignore pain. Now, I don't know the actual interaction with the blocked into ignore pain. We would imagine that it just happens between, you know, do you dodge or parry? If not, do you block? How much? Remaining damage unblocked. 60% of that goes to ignore pain. The rest of it goes to your face, right? That's probably the way it works in like the chain of damage, you know, what's greater than this in the whole flow chart there. But ignore pain has a very real, it has no animation right now, which is kind of a bum. Just does that. You just do the roar. There's no, you know, bubble or glow or anything like that on you, and it's only a 4-second little window. And actually, I think that roar is from Renewed Fury, which is a talent. Other than that, your talents haven't been changed, except we're talking about ignore pain right now. Indomitable now is just 20% max health increase. That's it. So with that, you have Devastate. You have 20% more base health. Maybe better on fights that have lots of errant dot magic damage oriented stuff, not big hits. Or you take Devastator, which your auto attacks will deal additional physical damage and a 30% chance to reset Shield Slam. So this is freeze up globals, gives you more potential for Shield Slam resets to give you more rage to then plan around your shield blocks and your ignore pains, right? You also have 2 hits for Devastator now. You have like both hits. You hear that? You also have like the blood splatter from Devastator hitting and applying, because Devastator applies deep wounds, because Devastate applies deep wounds. So you have that, but you have so many more options to reset your Shield Slam because your auto attacks have a 30% chance to reset Shield Slam. So that's a different rage talent entirely. So utilizing your rage a little more aggressively in this build, maybe weaving in some more revenge, even though I'm not going to get procs on this dummy because it's not attacking me. That's your option there. Or Never Surrender, which on live again. So Ignore Pain currently reads the most ridiculous math ever. I don't... It has an HP cap on it as well, but fight through the pain, ignoring 90% of the next attack power, which it actually says it's 2,230% of attack power plus 223% of attack power. What? Damage from any sources based on rage spent. Because there's a range of how much rage you can spend on ignore pain. I think it's up to 20, right? So it might be higher than that, but the database says 20. And then Never Surrender is ignore pain will ignore up to 100% more damage based on missing health. And now it's just that Ignore Pain is an additional 20% damage goes to Rage. So again, the option that I talked about with the Dragon's Breath mechanic, if you have Never Surrender talented, and you look at your Ignore Pain here, Ignore Pain reads that it is a 60% damage goes to Rage. Never Surrender goes right up to 80%. So that means during that 4-second window, if you have enough Rage for the math to work out in your favor in this timing, 80% of your damage you're about to take just goes into your Rage bar. And again, if it's a big magic damage attack, or even physical, right? Because if you cap out your Rage and you toss up a shield block and then shield slam into an Ignore Pain, you're going to have 70, 80 plus Rage. And then 80% of the damage you're about to take goes into your Rage bar instead. So timing that window for Never Surrender is like for big Ignore Pain moments. Devastator is for an increase in overall Rage generation and how the flow of the rotation feels. And Indomitable is just flat HP, which can be good for like Syndragosa style fights that are just like that pulsating damage madness that just keeps happening, aura-based fights or whatever, or tank dot-oriented fights where you just want more effective health, or even heavy physical damage fights, because again, higher HP and higher armor is more effective health. So this tier right here is very integral, and that's why integral, talking all day today. Very integral to how the Prot Warrior will play overall. These three talents now, I think, compete better than they do on live. Right now, it's just put on gloves, talent Devastator because it gives you so much Rage, and then Cruise Control. Just spam Ignore Pain all day. And that easier play style, once you have that setup, is now gone. In that same way, the next tier is also Rage-oriented. So we had Vengeance talented this whole time. And Vengeance is reworked now too from live to now. It's Shield Block will reduce the Rage cost of your next Revenge by 33%. So using your defensive ability allows you to be more aggressive with an offensive ability. And then the circle continues with Revenge, an offensive ability, reducing the Rage cost of your next Shield Block by 33% as well. Versus right now it has the whole Ignore Pain to Revenge, Revenge to Ignore Pain. But that, because of the math of Ignore Pain, it would cost less, but you could still technically cast it at a higher amount, but it would only take away whatever. This is just a back and forth Rage on defensive to offensive capabilities. Booming Voice, I still think, is ridiculously powerful. It's unchanged, but remember, Demo Shout now is a 60-second cooldown, not 90 baseline. Granted, no Legendary Belt. And Legendary Belt shenanigans, obviously, with Thunderclap on large packs of mobs, you could Demo Shout, Thunderclap twice, now have Demo Shout back up. But Booming Voice now is the Rage on demand and the damage to effective targets, which still really synergizes well with doing damage on a Prot Warrior, right? Putting into the Avatar window, that whole bursty nature. Heavy Repercussions into Avatar into Booming Voice. You've got 60% more damage on shield slams. You've got Avatar for 20% more flat. You've got Booming Voice for 25% more on the target, right? Plus Recklessness. There's that DPS Prot Warrior in all of us out there. I play Prot Warrior a lot on live, so I'm not just totally talking out of my ass here. That feels pretty good when you run into a mob and you pop everything and you get all those sweet, juicy whams. Right? The best is when you actually whabam into a Revenge, right back into a whabam. Oh, geez, it feels really good. And then we have Into the Fray, which is still the haste for nearby enemies. And at face value, even on the stream today, I was like, yeah, but is that really any good? The 15% multiplicative haste, this has only got 4 stacks right now. I can get to 5. There it goes. Is right off the bat probably really good for early gearing before you get a haste value that feels really good, right? That haste benchmark or soft cap that makes the rotation feel really good. Both Prot Warrior and Prot Paladin have this. Prot Paladin a little more so than Prot Warrior, but still it's definitely there. Into the Fray now, because of the changes across the board, and again, because Deep Wounds will scale with haste. Again, we saw the 2.6 second Deep Wound earlier. So now, Deep Wounds will tick because of the haste reduction. Let's go over here to 5 stacks. Ticks in 2.2 seconds. So there is a flat DPS gain because of deep wounds, which again, mostly applied by revenge, right? When you're AoEing with revenge, goes hand in hand. Versus on live right now, because there's no haste scaling on dots, especially deep wounds, it really doesn't do anything. It just quickens your rotation up and gives you more passive, you know, or more cooldown reduction for your GCD and whatnot. But now it has the added benefit of the haste scaling on dots. Crackling Thunder is unchanged. You've been seeing this whole time. I like the blue Thunderclap is real nice. Bounding Stride is unchanged. Warlord's Challenge unchanged. This whole tier as well with Avatar, Best Served Cold, and Renewed Fury are unchanged. But now there's a different window of time because you can't just spam Renewed Fury, right? But Avatar is a 1.5-minute long cooldown. And Best Served Cold really only works that well on Revenge when you're actually revenging lots of targets. So if I get a Revenge off on these 4 targets right here, you see the damage pop up, right? So we've got... what do we got here? So okay, Revenges, right? Like, so 560 into almost 1200, well, 1124. And then we swap that around and we take Best Served Cold, which is, in this case, will be 20% more damage. Yeah, 20% more damage because there's only 4 mobs in front. So we've got the 20% more across the board. So our crit there was 1350 versus, again, numbers are just for topical points versus the 1124. So there is the obvious synergy with Best Served Cold into the fray even, because if you're around lots of mobs, Best Served Cold into the fray just synergizes well together for AoEing, right? Take Shockwave for the crowd control for AoE, because again, Warbringer doesn't do AoE damage anymore. So you can see that working. Or again, you know, my personal favorite is the Booming Voice Avatar window with Devastator and heavy repercussions, because you want all those amazing resets during that window of time. Like that. Oh yeah, let's get that up there. Oh yeah, it's right. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't hit. I have different bindings on the alpha right now, so I actually went to hit my bindings that I have on live, and I was like, that's not where my demoralizing shout is. But that Avatar demo shout, Booming Voice, heavy repercussions window, I actually missed my shield block there too, I think. That's very burst-oriented Prot Warrior versus the AoE, you know, Best Served Cold into the fray, etc. Anger management is unchanged from live as well, except that it is now Recklessness, just name change, then Last Stand, Shield Wall, Demoralizing Shout. But the demo shout, again, remember, 30 seconds on the base cooldown, no legendary belt, but anger management's going to do the same overall amount of cooldown reduction you're used to on live, if not a little bit differently, because you're not just dumping rage over and over and over and over again into ignore pain, because it doesn't cost anything. You're going to be dumping rage tactfully into ignore pain, windows of time, and then revenge. Revenge still being expensive. 30 rage, which is just 5 less than a shield block, right? The way you play on live right now is shield block and ignore pain cost almost nothing. So you basically just are forced to spend rage on revenge. They've shifted that ever so slightly, where ignore pain now is this cooldown that doesn't cost anything, but it will cost you rage when used properly. So don't just haphazardly spam revenge. All right, just keep it in your pants, Prot Warrior friends. So that's why you want to get all that dodge and parry, right? So stack critical strike rating, because you want more parries, right? Critical strike gives parry chance, because you can't get dodge on a Prot warrior at all unless there's a trinket that gives you dodge. You have 3% base, so you can get parry though. That's about all you can really get. So I mean, strength gives parry, crit gives parry. So stack parry to spam revenge. I don't know. But that is everything. Impending Victory is here, and if you didn't know, it's baseline for arms and fury, which is way more of a thing than for protection. But Impending Victory is a health scaling heal, Indomitable. Just the flat health increase will make Impending Victory more of an on-demand reactionary heal. Again, small ways that the Prot Warrior can deal with magic damage, so the sky isn't falling. And if anything is extra about this is that in Legion, until the new artifact traits came in towards the midway point of the expansion, Prot Warriors historically were horrible at magic damage. They just got completely wrecked But now you have the impending victory and indomitable synergy, or at least just never surrender for large or ignore pains to have magic damage soak up your rage. You still have Speller Effect baseline where other tanks lost their magic damage outward defensives, and they buffed Demoralizing Shout to be less of a cooldown, so you can use it more often to help yourself stay alive from magic damage because it will reduce the damage that the target does to you. But overall, the main changes to Prot Warrior feel really good. I think the rotation at times can be a little slow because of the rage change, and obviously getting resets on Shield Slam heavily determines how, which is why Devastator is still really good for rage generation. But it might not be the best for pure survivability because it just gives you more rage, but Ignore Pain's a cooldown, and Shield Block's a cooldown with a shorter window. So do you want more passive HP for more effective health, or do you want bigger Ignore Pains? Do you want to use the rage refunding of the Vengeance talent to have back and forth? If you want to be a little more aggressive with your revenges, but still have the rage for shield blocks when they're available? Do you take Ravager for the additional cooldown for the huge amount of parry? Which that amount of parry will give you tons of revenge procs for that 1 minute most likely. So best serve cold for helping AoE down mobs in dungeons, right? Renewed Fury puts itself into this like mini bursty window with heavy repercussions that you can time your Renewed Fury into shield block, right? You can do a little bit of these. If I get procs right now, which I probably won't. Of course I won't. Why would I get procs? But you can do one of those. Because you get the extra, was it 6 seconds of 10%? Yeah. So you can kind of combine your two defensives to give you an offensive window because you're wanting to shield slam with heavy repercussions with the 10% more damage on top of that. So it's rotational damage for properly using or timing your defensive cooldowns. So those work together. There's options here. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Again, if you want more about the ridiculous block madness that we talked about on the stream, the VOD will be uploaded here on YouTube, so you can subscribe right here to the YouTube channel. You can go check out the Twitch channel if you want to watch all the testing live. We are currently going to be finishing up Warrior and then moving on to the next 4 classes, which are being voted on my Twitter as this video goes live. The vote has about a day left. If you're watching this down the road, the vote has been sealed, and we have the next 4 specs. And we'll go from there. Or 4 classes. The specs will just happen sort of as the alpha rolls forward. Let me know what you think about the Protection Warrior. Leave me your comments down below about the build possibilities or the possible simplification of, but then increased skill cap of timing shield block and ignore pain properly. And also let me know what you think about the straight-backed boy and how many of you are going to roll the chiropractic orcs once the expansion comes out. I do, of course, have to make sure I end with this, that your animations when you're in combat, if you didn't already notice, go right back to the animations you're used to on live. So there is no straight back orc in combat as it currently stands. If that's ever going to be a thing or not, I have no idea. We'll have to wait and see, because you're still the hunched over orc when you're in combat. When you're walking, you're a little more straight. But then, of course, once you're in combat, you have to walk out, and when you do, like, you know, you can flirt.
Lady, from the moment I see you, I did not expect to get this far.
Right. They still do the animations you're used to. But they're a little bit more straight. Backed. You know, 2018 and all that. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you all in the next first pass in the Battle for Azeroth Alpha for finishing up Warriors with the Fury Warrior.